ערב טוב לכולם, 2 דקות, מיד מתחילים. היי שמח, ערב טוב לכולם, good evening. We will wait a few more minutes.
תום, היי, ערב טוב.
שמע, יופי.
שנייה, אני רוצה זה נראה לי לא טוב, ככה איך יוצא, כאילו תמונה ביחד עם מצלמה, לא מצליחה להסיר את התמונה, מה לעשות? מבחינה טכנית, מה עליי לעשות, כאילו?
לא, קודם כל לא נורא,
אבל
אבל
זה פדיחה, לא.
קשה לי להנחות אותך בסיפור הזה.
טוב, שנייה, מה נעשה? אפשר, אז לא, גם לא נעים לחבות את המצלמה, לא.
את יכולה, תלכי, יש לך חץ קטן ליד הוידאו למטה,
אוקיי,
תלחצי על החץ,
ליד הוידאו?
כן,
כן,
ואז יש לך שם וידאו settings,
וידאו סטינגס, איפה זה? יואו, שנייה.
או משהו עם background,
נראה לי שזה כאן. כן, יש לי.
ואז ב-background תבחרי בלי תמונה, או
או בלר.
כן,
יופי. עכשיו זה בסדר. נכון?
עכשיו לא
זה-
רואים אותך,
לא, מה עשיתי? נו.
תפתחי את המצלמה,
יופי.
או עכשיו זה,
אוקיי,
טוב, תודה לך.
טוב, 100%. סומייה, you with us? Okay, I hope that Sumaya will join us in a minute. Oh, here you are, Sumaya.
Hi.
Good evening. Good
I was
evening.
trying to upload the PowerPoint. Yeah, that's why I was a little late.
So we will solve it in a minute, but first let's begin. First of all, I will start recording with your permission.
Yes.
And of course, in a minute we will go live on YouTube.
That would be great.
Recording in progress.
Okay. So, first of all, good evening, everyone. Tonight at the Middle East Center, we are honored to host Sumaya Al-Mahiri, the first student from the United Arab Emirates in Israel, to hear about her fascinating journey. This evening will be conducted in English, and will be accompanied by Hebrew subtitles, courtesy of Karen Opaz and Rachel Kessel. But before we begin, we will hear a short introduction in Hebrew from Samach Sakran, the CEO of Sufra al-Mahba, an organization working in the Arab sector in Israel to empower disconnected youth. Samach, we're excited to hear from you. Samach, נשמח לשמוע את ההקדמה שלך.
טוב, ערב טוב לכולם, תודה לך תום, תודה על ההקדמה הסופר מעניינת. אני באמת כל כך נרגשת היום, כי אני הולכת לדבר על דמות כל כך מעניינת עבורי, מישהי שאני ראיתי בה כאישה פורצת דרך, מעוררת השראה, בחורה צעירה שפתאום ככה בתור ערבייה ישראלית, בתוך המדינה רואה חדשות, רואה ומסתכלת ושומעת בכותרות שיש לנו סטודנטית אחת לאחר הסכמי השלום שהיא נמצאת בתוך אוניברסיטת חיפה, וזה ממש סקרן אותי. ואז ביוזמה ממני אני שלחתי אליה באינסטגרם ככה להכיר אותה ולהזמין אותה גם להכיר את החברה שלי, החברה הערבית במיוחד. זה יצא מתוך באמת, כי אני אדם שאוהבת להכיר אנשים, קודם כל, להכיר אחרים, ולא פספסתי את ההזדמנות הזאת. אז סומייה, אהלה וסהלה, בהיק, اسمحوا لي إني أحكي بالعربي, תרשו לי לדבר ולהגיד כמה מילים בערבית, אני חייבת. אז سومية أنا كتير مبسوطة اليوم, كتير سعيدة إني أنا هيك يعني بدي أحكي مقدمة بسيطة عنك في اللغة العبرية, مع إنك أنت تستاهلي كل الكلام, يعني بقدرش أختصرك ب5 دقايق إنما أكتر. فأنا كتير سعيدة ومبسوطة. אמרתי לה שאני לא יכולה באמת לתאר אותך ולהגיד כאילו עניין של דקה או 2 דקות עלייך, כי את באמת מגיע לך יותר מזה. אני הכרתי באופן אישי את סומייה, אירחתי אותה אצלי בכפר, והיא הייתה באמת בחורה כל כך מדהימה, היה מעניין אותה לראות באמת מה קורה בתוך החברה הערבית. שהזמנתי אותה לא סירבה, היא באה עם ביטחון עצמי כל כך גבוה, וזה היה מעניין עבורי לראות בחורה שהיא באה מתוך מדינה שרק שמענו עליה בחדשות, רק שמענו על איחוד האמירויות. זה היה מקום שכולנו חלמנו עליו, להיות בו, לבקר בו, ופתאום לראות מישהי שהוא עושה את הצעד הראשון הזה ומובילה את ההתעניינות הזאת להכיר באנשים, להכיר באחרים, וזה מה שמדגיש את סומייה ואת הדמות של סומייה. היא אוהבת באמת לדבר עם אנשים, ואני חושבת שזה נקודת המפתח כאן. הרי אנחנו נמצאים בתוך המרכז לנורמליזציה, שמטרתו באמת, קודם כל אני רוצה להגיד שזה כמובן שבו לתום, כי תום זה באמת הוא פשוט גורם לדברים האלה להתפתח ועוד במהירות כזאת. אנחנו פשוט מאוד במרכז הזה דואגים ורוצים לדאוג באמת לחבר בין אנשים שאתם יודעים מה, גם אלה האויבים, גם האויבים של לנסות ככה לדבר איתם, לראות מה מניע אותם וכו'. עכשיו אחרי הסכמי השלום ראינו שאנשים רק רוצים את ההזדמנות הזאת של השלום, בשביל באמת לפתח את הקשרים, בשביל להרגיש בביטחון יותר. סומייה ביקרה אצלי בכפר שלי, בכפר ערבי בצפון, כפר עבלין, חווינו חוויות כל כך נהדרות, עד כדי כך שאמרה לי פעם, תקשיבי סמח, זה לא מה שאנחנו רואים בחדשות, אנחנו לא רואים את המצב הזה בחדשות, לא רואים שבאמת יש כאן חיים נורמליים, ערבים עם יהודים וכו', עם כל הקונפליקט שיש, וזה מה שהיה. אז תרשו לי להגיד לכם שאתם הולכים לשמוע הרצאה כל כך מעניינת מסומייה, ויש לה הרבה מה להגיד לכם. אז סומייה, אני كتير مبسوطة انك انت معنا اليوم, כל כך שמחה שאת איתנו היום.
شكرا حبيبتي سماح، شكرا على كل كلمة قلتيها. תודה רבה לסמאח, אני שמחה מאוד שאני הכרתי אותה. הייתה הזדמנות נפלאה ואין מה להגיד על זה. חברה טובה באמת.
Okay, Sumaya, thank you for joining us this evening, and we would like to hear you, and I understand that you have a presentation. You can share it.
Yes, I do.
Like.
Yep, I'm trying to right now.
Okay.
Documents. Oh. I haven't used the Zoom for a while, so I don't know how.
You should press share.
Yeah, I did share, but it needs to be a desktop something.
You should open it on your desktop.
But I remember, okay. If I couldn't, you can open the document I sent you.
Yes, yes.
Not used to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay, that's great.
Okay. So now we see your presentation.
Yeah. So this is my journey to you. And when I say my journey to you, I was thinking about the title in the beginning. I was like, is it supposed to be my journey to Israel? But it's not really only my journey to Israel. It was my journey to learn Hebrew. It was my journey to learn about the Israeli community, about the Arabs, about the Jews, about the different aspects of Israel and the different aspects of the culture and language and food and people. So for me, it was my journey to you people, to you as different identities, as different different ideologies, different people. It was my journey to you. So this is a very iconic picture that I picked. It was actually taken by my cousin when she was 3 years old. It looks really like a photo shoot, but it was genuine. And this picture was the most shared picture of me in your country. So let me start by telling you a bit about my past. And it's in the next slide. So I was born in the United States of America. So to two Emirati parents. So I am both American and Emirati by identity. I was an electric engineer in the UAE. It was my profession, but it was never my passion, to be honest. That's a little picture of me being a bit with an attitude, and I always do have an attitude. I was always a curious child. My dad also used to have this little nickname for me when I was a kid, which is Somiya Leish. In Hebrew, it's like Somiya Lama. That's like why? Because I would always ask about things. I wouldn't take anything for granted. Like, Dad, why is the sky blue? He would tell me, because God created it that way. I was like, why? Why? And so I would confuse my dad because I would always ask, why? And what? And how? And I still am. This hasn't ever changed. But I wanted to also say that in the past, I was not always having, like, I had some stereotypes when I was younger. I would fall to them. So my vision or view towards Israel was never the same as it is today. This is a very critical point. Why? Because in the past, I saw Israel through the lens of media. I saw Israel through the lenses of what people would say about it. So in general, in the Middle East, what we know about Israel was not really what I experienced. It was influenced by ignorance. I would post hateful things on Twitter. I would post hateful things on like social media. But then you can go to the next slide. You can go to the next slide. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this all changed. Okay.
This is the next slide, right?
Yeah, this is the starting point of interest, yes. So one day, my father was looking or listening to the Shema on the YouTube. YouTube channels when people surf the YouTube. So I heard the Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Ahad. But I heard it in a very distinct, what do you call it? Khazan, who was saying it in the Yemenite dialect, which is very, very similar to Arabic pronunciation, because we have the het and the ain and those guttural sounds. And it sounded so much like Arabic, but it was like coded Arabic, like it's like a code that I need to understand. And then I surfed a little bit in Hebrew in YouTube, and I found out about Ofra Hazza. And I listened to her songs, especially in Hebrew, Yemenite Hebrew. And I fell in love actually with the language, and I felt the need this happened in 2013. I felt the need to learn this language. I fell in love. So the more I learned about the Yemenite Jews, the more that I felt there is a lot that we have in common. They cover their hair, as you see in the pictures, in their traditional outfits. They eat similar food to us in the Gulf region. They look like us. You can see how Ofra Hazza has the darker tone. By the way, I'm a little bit fair to the people in the Gulf, but Ofra Hazza is what the normal Khaliji person would look like, This is the normal look. Anyways, so I started to being curious, and I got to know some Israeli people, but because life goes on and because there's social and cultural obligations, I was never committed to studying Hebrew until 2020 when the Corona happened. I decided to learn the language because, there was quarantine and there was nothing to do. And I was like, I know something that I always wanted to do, and it was learning Hebrew. And in that way, you can go to the next slide, please. Next. Yes, that's where I started my language exchange group. I tried to learn Hebrew by the applications, and I tried to learn Hebrew through YouTube and stuff, but it didn't work for me. I knew that I'm a person who likes to communicate. So that's how I created my first Arabic Hebrew language exchange. And it was the first language exchange platform in the Arabian Gulf. And this was even before the peace agreements. There was no relationships between the countries yet. So we used to get on Zoom a lot and get to learn about each other's cultures, each other's languages. You can see that here there's a Jewish lady, Avital Schneller. She's one of my best friends. She's a Jewish girl. And Tommy Sleiman, he's a Christian Arab. Hassan Mansour is an Egyptian learner, and Imtiaz Radman is one of the also Arab learners. So there was Hebrew and Arabic going around a lot. Anyways, so then the peace agreements happened. It was August 2020. You can go to the next slide.
Just a second. From some reason.
Yeah, you can just try to go to the next slide. I'll tell you a little bit more. So,
No.
yeah, what happened was, this one. What happened was when the peace agreements happened, I already had hundreds of members in my language exchange group, and some of them were doctors, some of them were I forgot the word in English. It was such a surprise. My vocabulary. Yeah, so journalists. And one of the people who were a journalist wanted to have an interview about me exploring the Hebrew language and my experience in having a Jewish friend or Israeli friends for the first time in my life. So I was on the news and I was on the newspapers. And after that, because of that spotlight, I was invited to be on the first cultural delegation to ever visit Israel. So we visited Israel before anyone from the UAE could ever do that, but it was a very special trip for me, especially that I have always dreamed to visit Jerusalem. As you know, that Jerusalem is very special place in the three Abrahamic religions. And I always prayed to God before even anything happened, peace or not peace. I always prayed since I was a young child to visit Al-Aqsa Mosque. And it was honestly a dream come true. That was like something I never thought it would happen, but I always prayed to God that I could do that, to pray in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So that was one thing, but the cultural delegation basically was showing us Israel, different cultures. We went to have on the first night the Shabbat dinner in an ultra-Orthodox household, which was amazing and an out-of-body experience. I was so excited and I didn't even know what to do or how to look. And I was holding the part of Torah where you read the Shabbat prayers, and I was trying to read the Hebrew that I have learned, you know. So it was nice, and the cutting of the challah and the drinking the soup of I forgot what it is. Is it what's the chicken ball soup? Do you know what it is? Like the traditional one? Yes. Yes. Yeah, so I enjoyed that. And of course, because we don't drink, we had the meats anavim for children. It was so nice. Yeah, it was a nice experience. We also went to Druze villages where the Druze food is amazing, to be honest. Like, it's the best food in Israel. I can't like lie. And we went to Christian places, and the country was beautiful. It stole my heart. And the people were so welcoming. The people were so loving. The people wanted to share their stories, their lives with us. And because I was interested in changing my career, I was interested in learning midwifery or nursing. So I decided after like the first visit, I said, you know what? I really want to study in Israel. And that's how I decided. But before that happened, we went on an activism trip, which was about peace activism, which is the next slide. Yes. So, oh yeah, that's the first cultural delegation. I'll tell you a little bit about the pictures. So the pictures where we were holding the flags, this was when they welcomed us in the airport. So we were a few people. And the one with the microphone atop of our heads was when ultra-Orthodox Jewish man saw us from the balcony and came running to the Habima in Tel Aviv to welcome us. I was like explaining to him that I saw him on the balcony and I said hi to his kids, like I was waving to his children that were looking at us Arabs wearing our traditional clothes, walking in the Habima. So, and the third picture, obviously, I think you all know where that is, don't you? It was in the Kotel. We were welcomed in the Kotel by the high rabbis also. And people were amazed. It was like a kind of historic event or something, but people all over were they were yelling at us, "We love you." Also, some Yemenite Jews who speak Arabic, they were saying, "Nahna nahubbukum, nahna nahubbukum," like we love you, and it was amazing, and this whole experience changed my view on Israel and how Israeli people are, and I was like, I should be more open to see how people are in the actual life instead of like learning about it from different sources, you know? Personal experience is real experience. Anyways, the next slide. So yeah, about the peace activism. After our trip to Israel, obviously I had a very new perspective about it, especially that I have a lot of Israeli friends already. I learned the language. I have the first Arabic Hebrew language exchange group. So I was invited a few times to speak, and I am a natural speaker. Since I was in school, I would get on stage and speak about stuff. And yes, I did share my experience. We went to the United States. We've been to Georgia, New York, and another place I honestly forgot, but basically New York and Georgia. And we went and spoke about our experience, peace in the Middle East like it was never before. Like people to people, what we can say, like not in a governmental level, but how people interact with each other, learn from each other, understand each other. So the other picture where there's no flags, there's a screen behind us. That's also, I was invited, would stand with us to give a speech about my experience in Jerusalem. So, and also there was one time I was invited to give a speech in Tel Aviv, and the reactions of people were very touching. There were people who were crying. There were people who were like hopeful. There are people who were saying that they never really thought there was hope to have Israelis and Arabs of any nation to interact with each other in an open way. So I felt that there was a message that I had to deliver to people. So the peace activism was a let's say a route that I enjoyed, and I felt that it is a duty in some way to show people how mentalities can change with education, because ignorance, some people say it is a bliss, but I do not believe that ignorance is a bliss at all. Ignorance is the source of hate. Ignorance is because people what do people hate? People hate the unknown. So when you know more, you have less hate. You learn about something, maybe you're not afraid of it anymore because you know all its aspects, you know how people think, you know their mentality, you know, like they're humans like me. Why do I have to fear or hate them? When we see what's in common, we see our commonality is more than our differences. We feel we're okay, then we're just the same. Why do I hate them? Why am I afraid of the other side? And I'm not only saying this about like as a Muslim to Jews, but I'm also saying vice versa. There are Jewish people who hate Arabs, but do they know really what Arab culture is, what Arab language is, what is the culture? I think both sides should learn about each other so the hate and fear fades away. We can go to the next slide. So that's what happened when I decided to be the first Emirati student to study in Israel. I ran after my goal and I decided to make it happen. And the University of Haifa took me in and gave me a scholarship to study there. I stayed there for a year and a few months, like let's say 2 years, just for the heck of it. And in that time, in the time of 2 years, I had the best experiences of my life. This picture down there is me with my friends that I got to know from the Arabic Hebrew language exchange. And they're also one who's Adiel. He's a very known in the social media in Israel. He also is a Tel Aviv University student, and we did like events that, like, let's say cultural exchange events that we learn about each other's cultures. And it was also a Hanukkah event. So we put two together. And yeah, we could go to the next slide. So the highlights of my experience, there was a lot of pictures to pick from. But just wait a second. Okay, there was a lot of pictures to pick from, but unfortunately I was out of time. And but I can explain them in a few words. In the 2 years that I have lived in Israel, I've tried to get on the trains, the Rakhbalit, the buses, going to all over the country, especially in the north. I visited a lot of Arab villages. One of the villages is Samah's village, Abellin. She invited me to stay there for Ramadan. We had iftar. They welcomed me with barbecue. And by the way, you Israelis love meat, whether Arabs or Jews, you love to eat meat. And yeah, so it was really nice. They welcomed me within their family. I stayed the night. I saw the celebrations of Ramadan in their village, and the debke, and the, you know, all of the music that I enjoyed. But as this experience was amazing, it was not the only one. I've been to Christmas markets in Christian villages or cities like Nazareth, like Gush Khalav, like Fassuta, which are all Christian majority, I think. And I was making Christmas trees with my friends. I was like putting the ornaments on the trees and having like New Year's Eve dinner with them, and yeah, staying at their homes. And I was invited to Shabbat dinners a few times. And I made khalas with my friends. So It was amazing. It was amazing. I went to the Parade waterfalls. I've been to, what else? I've been to Simerims. Simerims is something like, it's Israeli culture thing. I mean, when you do inside tourism, that's where Israelis go to. And I got the honor to experience Israeli life and Israeli culture and Israeli food. So it was like the best experience of my life, although that I've been to 25 countries in the past. But to me, the experience that I had getting to know people from different backgrounds, from different religions, was a very touching experience. So could you go to the next slide? So, התקוות שלי לעתיד טוב יותר. Obviously, all of us were very anxious about the war that happened, both sides, Muslims and Jews. A lot of people died. A lot of people were in distress. Obviously, the people who were experiencing the war more than people who were watching. But even for those who were watching, who are for peace, were also stressed. But I know it's a different type of stress. And it was very painful to see people dying from both ends, people being hurt from both ends. But in some way, like when peace comes, when war happens, there is a lot of hate instigated, a lot of, from both sides I'm speaking, not from one side or the other. There's a lot of hate that comes out. There's a lot of, and that hate comes from the pain, not only from the ignorance that I mentioned before, but pain from both sides that are losing family members, that are losing health, that are losing houses, that are losing many things, losing hope itself. So when the war ends, what I really hope for is the peace. But how does the peace happen with all that pain? It's the understanding of the other side. Like you would say, each side would say, oh, those need to understand what we've gone through. We like everyone wants to feel the how do you say, all sides are victims to this war, basically. But for a person to understand the other side needs courage, first of all, and to understand their pain, to understand, let's say, their culture, their mentality. And when people start learning about each other and people getting together, that's when it is less likely for these hateful things or events to happen. Because when people are more united, less hate is expected to happen, I guess. But I think that for that to happen, it should be a very, 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 very long journey. But for this journey to start, people should be willing to have hope. People should be willing to understand, should be willing to learn from both sides. That's what I think. So praying for hope, praying for peace, praying for safety to all. And thank you all for listening to me, and thank you all for this amazing experience, whether I met you or I haven't.
Wow. Thank you, Somiya. It was inspiring and very important and exciting as well. An amazing journey, really. You're kind of like they should put you in the same line with the you know, Christopher Columbus and Amerigo de Vespucci and all those names. First of all, I guess that members of the group have questions. I invite anyone that wants to have a question to raise his hand or to write it on the chat. Before we begin, I would like to ask you
Yes.
about the comments or the responses that you got from your basically from the Emirati people or from your family and friends in the US.
I wanted to add that to the presentation, but also I did not have that much of time because, you know, I'm studying in the UK at the moment and I have a lot of presentations and assignments to do. So I had the few last hours to create this presentation, but part of the presentation was going to be about the reactions that I had. So basically, as I told you, because people have a lot of stereotypes about Israel, which are not very positive. Yeah, that's the reality, honestly. And because I have already started to change my perspective about Israel, there was a conflict, especially that my family, or let's say my parents in general, my siblings don't really care, but my parents are from the older mentality. So they were very fearful for my safety. They were very fearful to what might happen to me as concerned parents. Where to me it was actually a little bit funny because I already, like, the part where I told you to be educated, to lose the fear, to lose the hate, has been already stepped over. I stepped over that part. But I understood their fear over me. I understood why they might be concerned because of how they view Israel of like a war zone. They view Israelis as people who, which I understand is not the reality, but they understand, they see it as their backstabbers. They're gonna hurt you. They're gonna do something for you. And I think it's the same thing for some Jewish people, how they view Arabs. They're gonna hurt you. They're gonna do this. They're gonna, you know. So for me, I already had like the change of mind and understanding of different people. So even if I understood their point of view, but I still went forward with whatever I saw is right. On the other hand, Emiratis didn't really react much. They were more of surprised maybe, but didn't like, it was a middle confusion way. Some of it is like, no, some of it is like, yes, we support you. And some of it like, why are you doing this? It's a confusion, you know? But I got support, a lot of support as well. But the reaction, most of it didn't come from the UAE. Most of it come from Palestinians or Arab Israelis or Israelis themselves. So there was a variety of people welcoming me. There are a variety of people cyberbullying me and like... And I had some pictures of, you know, a funny caricature when people want to bully someone, they would get a picture and draw some mustache and an eye patch. And that was one of the funniest picture I wanted to show you. Someone sent me a picture of me like scribbled on. I was like, seriously, that's so childish. It's like teenager bullying people. Like, you know, I'm an adult, I'm in my 30s, and I'm like, people think that works still, you know? And anyways, people who were actually something surprising, and I don't know why I didn't mention it in the beginning, I was actually, people were sending me death threats, honestly. Even rape threats, death threats, threatening to stab me, threatening to I don't know, if they saw me in the street, they're gonna spit in my face or whatever, like trying to intimidate me. But as a person who has a very strong mentality or strong personality, I called them a bluff, like, well, if you think you're gonna do it, then show me, you know? So I just did what I thought was right. I did what made me feel is the right choice for me at the time. And it was the best choice that I did. It was the best thing that I did in my life. And I'm very thankful to God that he allowed me to experience this, honestly. Yeah, so that's it.
And you know, the Abraham Accords and really fast and successful normalization between Israel and the UAE obviously happened before the October 7th and the regional war that happened. And many people were skeptic regarding the question, first of all, whether the agreement itself, whether the peace agreement itself between the countries will last this war that is obviously a challenge, and also whether the relationship between the people, between the companies, between the intellectuals that have started to form from both sides. And there's even, you know, you can say a small Israeli colony or a small Israeli community in Dubai that is already living there. So people thought it wouldn't last the war, but we see that, well, the agreement lasted and the relationship to some extent lasted. What do you think about the future and the changes that occurred in this complicated relationship since the October 7th?
For me, I've been in the UK since 2023, but I have went to visit for like a couple of months in the UAE for seeing my family. So I do have a lot of Jewish friends in the UAE that I keep in contact with, and I understand that it is the Jewish community in the UAE is thriving, and I have been invited in the past for a few, like the Pesach, the Hanukkah celebrations, the New Year celebrations and prayers in the UAE. So they do have these events and occasions celebrated, and they invite Emirati peoples or their friends, not necessarily Emirati only, but there are people who are from Lebanon and Syria that attend these types of Jewish celebrations and events, which is amazing. You can see people from nationalities or countries that do not have peace with Israel, but are attending these occasions because they do have friends who are Jewish who are living in the UAE. So it is like bringing people together, you know. And I had like 3 rabbi friends and their wives, of course. I've been to a few of their houses. They have like kosher restaurants. They have kosher, what do you call it? Supermarkets as well in the UAE. Like my favorite is Rimon Market. They have all the kosher, and they have bamba and bisli, and that's what I love to have in Israel. So yeah, I think because the UAE has 200 different nationalities living there, and we welcome people from different what do you call it, religions and cultures, and we do believe in coexistence, and we do not tolerate hate. We do not tolerate racism. It is against the law to be racist. It is against the law to be discriminative. So I think that is why there is hope of living in diversity and in multiculturalism and multi faiths in the UAE. It is the safest country in the world, like honestly.
So,
Baruch Hashem.
so let's hop on this topic, because I think that in the Israeli public opinion, and maybe not only in the Israeli, but also the Western public opinion, there has been this sort of difference between the UAE, which has done a lot, not only in terms of growth, but also in terms of public opinion and creating a very good image of itself, and other Arab nations. So they say, oh, the UAE, they are different, they are more progress, they have
Yes, they're progressive, yeah.
ideas. But how would you characterize it? Do you think that the UAE is a step ahead of other Arab nations in that area, and if so, then what can achieve this step forward in the rest of the Arab world or most of the Arab countries?
I do agree with you about the UAE being progressive. As you know, it's not a very old nation. It has only been, the United Arab Emirates was established in 1971. There are countries that are way older than the UAE, but because of the vision of the leaders in the UAE and how they prioritize their people and they prioritize the future of their people and their safety, it is why the UAE has jumped past many nations in the world. They cared about educating their people. They care about their health of their people. They prioritize it. They try to facilitate lives for Emiratis and then the world, and making the UAE a center of a commercial center, tourism center, cultural center for the Middle East. So how would that be achieved with no safety? First of all, you make the country safe. You make the laws of people that people respect. You respect different religions. You respect different cultures. At the same time, in a way that all of them respect each other equally. All of them respect the rules. So without that level of safety, how would that, what do you call it, progressiveness happen? Because then the country would be more, how do you call it, more involved in taking care of crime and problems that they have instead of progressing and going forward. So when they create an environment of people that are educated, that are safe, that are healthy, that they facilitate for people to go forward, the whole country will go forward as well, you know? So I think the first point is in education, learning, putting effort and money into research, putting money and effort into communication with the other cultures, with other religions, and so on. That's how I see it works.
Great.
I'm not an expert on it, though.
So you mentioned the future.
Yeah.
What's your take on the future in terms of, well, specifically the relationship between Israel and the UAE, but more generally the relationship between Israel and the entire Arab world? How do you see the future?
To be honest, this is a very difficult question because I am not an expert on political manners, but let's talk about it in a cultural manner. As I've seen, there are a lot of people from Israel that go to the UAE and learn about the culture And it happens that they are exposed to a very new perspective to Arabs, to the Arab culture, to the Arabic language, even the Arabic food that is very different than hummus and falafel. That's not our food in our region, you know. It is very tasty, hummus and falafel, but that's not ours. And when Israelis taste our food, it's a different palette. Also, our music is a different perspective. Our dresses is very totally different, you know. Even our accents and dialects, you know. It's very nice. I used to take a lot of my friends to historical places in the UAE. They would learn about they would learn about how Dubai was in the past, in the 60s, let's say, or the 50s, and would learn about the role of Emiratis in creating this progressive country, whether they're women, whether they're men and women, but especially the role of women in the UAE. I would take them to the Women's Museum, for example. So when people learn about these things, about the culture, about the mentality of Emiratis, let's say, they will develop also a progressive thinking towards peace. They would want to communicate people to people. They would like to learn. They would like to understand. On the other hand, a lot of Emiratis still fear to come to Israel based on the stereotypes they have been raised on. But there have been a number of Emiratis that have been to Israel to visit the holy sites, which is a really good point to make. To facilitate these trips for Emiratis to explore the historical and religious sites is one of the most attractive things to happen, because which Muslim doesn't want to visit Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is a symbol in our religion, and a lot of people would love to have that opportunity. On the other hand, the nature of Israel is amazing. The mountains, the trees, the forests, and even the Negev desert. I mean, we have a desert, but the Negev desert is very different. It's mostly rocky, you know. And yeah, I really hope it becomes a thing, especially when Israel is in a safe, let's say, in a safe period. It would be more open to accepting tourism from our side, I guess. Yeah. I cannot hear you. You're muted, I guess.
Sorry. You've mentioned the role of women, which is interesting because, you know, you're the first Emirati student in Israel, but you're also the first female Emirati student in Israel. And in the Middle East, it counts and it has a significance. How would you characterize, first of all, the role of women in the UAE compared to the rest of the Muslim world? And how was your experience when you look at it as a woman?
Yeah, so since the very starting of, let's say, UAE's establishment, the leadership has concentrated on the role of women in the society. So I remember Sheikh Zayed, peace be on his soul, as he passed away in 2003. He used to always encourage women for education. And today, if we look at the statistics, I remember the last time I saw it, is 75 of higher educated people in the UAE were women. the UAE holds the most number in women in politics in the Middle East. So it has the most number of, let's say, ambassador women, what do you call it? Ministers, you call them ministers. And I'm not sure if it's called parliament women or something like that. So these roles in the UAE, when compared to other countries in the Middle East, are the highest of numbers as well. So if that indicates something, it indicates how much the country does put effort and interest in women development and women important role in either education, in either politics, in either all aspects of culture. So they did play a very important role, whether they're mothers, whether they're educators, whether they're politicians. And that's something great. And I think we're the only country, I'm not so sure, but we're the only country in the world, maybe, or the Middle East, let's say, who don't have a wage gap. No, we don't have a wage gap. Like, for example, the same amount of money that a male engineer receives is the same money that a female engineer receives. Yes, in the around the world that doesn't happen, but we do not have a gender gap regarding what do you call it, salaries and income, which is a great thing, I guess.
So we talked about the future in terms of the people, but what about the future in terms of your personal future? What are your plans? How do you see your future? Because you're a history maker, and I have this sense that you're not done with making history. What's on your to-do list now?
I have a few plans, but I don't want to jinx any.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm like thinking about things I hope that make a good impact in the world, let's say. Whether it's honestly, most of them is around culture. I like cultures. I like tourism. I like languages. So if it's going to be something, it's going to be something that involves that, basically. Yes.
And let's say we would put you in charge of solving the Israeli-Arab conflict, which might be a good idea, by the way. What would you do?
I wouldn't, honestly. It's too much of a mess, honestly. I have like hopes, yes. It can be very hopeful, and as I told you, the first step is for people to learn about each other. But as complicated as I understand it, there's a lot of things to be worked on from both sides, I guess. Starting from both sides racism toward each other, both sides education towards each other's religions, both sides education towards each other's history. Oh, there's a lot of to-do lists. I mean, but like I wouldn't. That's too much for me, honestly. Yeah, but hopefully there is someone who is willing and more powerful who can take care and be in charge, I guess. But me, I cannot be. Thank you and sorry.
Let's go back to the relationship between Israel and the UAE. So we've seen that the October 7th and the regional war, of course, had its effect, let's call it, on its chilling effect. But the relationship survived the war, and I guess obviously there are some discussions between the governments about the day after in Gaza and about numerous issues. Do you think that it can go backwards? Do you think that if we survive this test of the October 7th, this relationship will survive the other foreseen test, or do you see like a risk for this relationship in the future? For your personal assessment, of course.
Yeah, I know, but you're asking someone who has no political experience, but let me think about it in a way of the people. Let's say I'm a person who experienced it as like the events as other people have. So, and not only in my point of view, I'm talking about the people's maybe point of view is there are a lot of people in pain because of the things they were seeing on the news and seeing like the atrocities of war in general. So there are people who started losing hope in these types of relationships. There were people who were curious in the beginning and lost their interest. You know what I mean? And this is not the general of people. I mean, like some. But and that's what you said about people going backwards. Because when, let's say, when the Abrahamic Accord happened, it was called the peace agreement. And it was called the peace agreement because people were being very hopeful about peace surviving in that region. So when this war happened, it was when like a lot of people started to lose hope again. And I think for it to go forward between the people is to gain the people's trust, maybe in putting more effort towards peace, more effort towards connecting the different sides, more effort in interfaith relationships, more effort in multicultural events, you know what I mean, like for people to come closer together instead of what war made them hate each other, become racist toward each other, try to be as far away from the other side as possible. They're trying not to interact with each other. This is not going to bring peace, but the opposite will.
Totally. We are in a time where the possibility of normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia is being discussed, at least being discussed. And there are many estimations that the Trump era might lead to a new phase of the Abraham Accord that will include Saudi Arabia, maybe more countries. How would you guess that it will affect such a normalization, if it will happen, on the public, on the people in the rest of the Arab or the Muslim world?
Okay, so if this happens, I don't know how like the mass of people will react, but for me, I view it in a way that it is going to be a positive move for the people. Why would I say that? Because there are like a lot of Israeli Muslims in Israel that when they want to do their religious obligations and visit Saudi Arabia to perform Umrah or to perform Hajj, they would spend fortunes, like around, let's say, I don't know, like $300,000 or something, I guess, or like around that, or 30,000. I'm not sure. It's between 30,000 or $300,000 just to be able to perform that obligation. And that's, I don't know why, but I understand there's a lot of exploitations to these Muslim Israelis, because they have to go through Jordan, and from Jordan they have to go to Saudi, and there's a lot of like paperwork and stuff that they have to go through to reach Mecca, let's say, or Medina. So if these agreements happen and people could freely visit Israel, then that means it would be so much lighter for them financially and logistically to perform their religious obligations. That's one side of it. Another side of it is maybe Israelis will be capable to visit, let's say, Jewish historical locations. Like, for example, there's the city of חיפה, northern of Medina, where the Jews used to have like a village or something. Maybe some Jews are interested to go and visit and see that place. There are some historical places, I think, in some mountains in the north of Saudi Arabia that there are people who are interested to go and visit and see. So if that happened, both Jews and Muslim will have the opportunity to do these things and have that happen. So hopefully it does, but I think how the masses of the people around the Middle East would see it, especially those who are against Israel, will see it as treason in some way, I guess. And well, if you see the positives, I think it does outweigh the negatives. That's how I see it.
Probably. Okay, so we will start ending with a few questions from the chat. So first of all, of course, you can't speak for your government and you're not expected to, but for your estimation, what would the UAE do if it had to deal with groups like Hamas, for example, that were inside Saudi Arabia?
I don't know. I think both Saudi Arabia and the UAE are against, or like, what do you call it? They classify Hamas as a terrorist organization. So I don't know like about that, honestly, but like if they classified them as that, of course, like they wouldn't allow any activities that are related to them.
Yes. Maybe the other end of this question, or the other side of this question, we've witnessed many occasions where, especially the Iranian regime, or on the other hand, sometimes Islamic Brotherhood or different extremist groups, were trying in different ways to rattle the regimes of the countries that made peace with Israel. For example, in Bahrain, we've seen several demonstrations against the regime over there that were fueled by the Iranian regime and the Hezbollah. And in Morocco, there were also many demonstrations against the king because he went to normalization that were fueled by extremists. What about the UAE? Is there any sign of unrest inside the UAE? Is there any attempt?
About the other countries, I don't know, maybe I'm unaware of it. As I told you, I am not of good experience in political sciences. But what I've seen in the UAE is that we as Emirati people fully trust our leadership. We honestly have seen what they have done for our country, and we have seen what they have done to us, the people. So we do know that whatever choices or decisions they make is for the general good of the country and the people. So there were no demonstrations or anyone who goes against the leadership here in the UAE, as we truly believe in their vision.
Great. So I'll invite Karen to ask her question. Karen, you're on mute.
Karen.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks. Before I need to interpret you again. It's very, very exciting to hear you. Thanks for this talk. I wanted to ask, because you're actually part American and you're living now in Britain.
I'm not part American. My mom and dad are Emirati, but I was born in the States.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Oh.
So you're part American, not by origin, by your life.
Yes.
And you currently live in the UK.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask, like, from your experience, I don't know at what age you left the US, but since we've seen people there and how they demonstrate and what their opinions are about Israel, and these are people that can freely come to Israel with no, they don't even have the different dress or something. What can you say about their opinions that were formed from I don't know who about Israel, and the fact that they have zero interest in finding out whether those opinions are true or not?
Honestly, I left the States when I was 8 years old. So it was in the late 90s, beginning of the 2000, even before the Intifada. So I really don't have an experience of how that culture has formed. But maybe it's like because of the events that happened in Israel and their interpretation of it comes through their families' experiences and perspectives towards the wars, whether they are Palestinians, maybe there's a lot of Palestinian Americans in the States, and they have been displaced from their original, villages and cities, and they might feel this, like they feel like they are people in the diaspora, that they cannot come back to their homelands. So it builds how do you call it? It builds wall of resentment, let's say. There will be resentment. And
yeah, I'm referring more to the people who are not Palestinians, the people who are
obviously, because Palestinians are a very big community. In the States, I remember when we used to live, the Arab community was very, entwined together. So it was not only like, let's say, it's not only Palestinians alone and let's say Saudis alone. No, it was the Palestinians with the Saudis, with the Emiratis and the Kuwaitis. All Arab nations were like making a community. So when we had, let's say, religious social events like Eid, like Ramadan, things, all these communities come together. So, when there is a community, your pain is my pain is your pain, and people share this experience. So I think based on that cultural experience, the mentality of resentment in the Arab society in America has grown to be stronger, and they would avoid learning about the other's perspective. And the American mentalities is very, like, what I understand from living there, even if I was young, each community is very biased to their own perspectives, whether they're Jewish, whether they're Christian, whether they're Catholic, whether they're Black, whether they're white, whether they're Mexicans. Each community is very biased to their own. So until they open up and listen to others and learn about others, it will continue to be the same, and resentment will only grow bigger and worse. So hopefully there are some initiatives to bring people together and educate them about each other, instead of staying in that state of hate and ignorance. That's what I can say about my perspective on that, honestly.
Okay, thank you. So last question from the chat. How, if at all, how can you influence the rest? How can you Emiratis influence the rest of the Arab world to do the, let's call it, to do the leap towards a new prospect of peace, let's call it, if it's a part of the agenda?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that leading by example, like if people share their experiences more, that's what I try to do, although I get a lot of hate. The problem is with sharing your experience, no matter how true you are to the experience, no matter how real you are trying to be, there will be an immense amount of hate because you are saying or you are sharing a perspective that does not match theirs, like their perspective, their thoughts. So if you say something different than me, then you are against me, which is a mentality that is not progressive, because it doesn't I don't have to agree with you to be with you. And if I don't agree with you, doesn't mean I am against you. So until they understand that, there will be a lot of challenges for people to share their experience, such as I am facing. I am very I really want to share my experiences in Israel with the world. I did, but it is just 1% of what I have experienced, and I still receive an immense amount of hate. The hate is not stopping me, to be specific, but it is slowing me down, if you know what I mean. So I think there should be more people having good experiences and sharing them for people around the world to see and learn, because if they're only going to depend on media and social media and news platforms, they're only going to be fed with agenda of people who are selfish, who just want their own good. They will not learn about the real culture, the real people, the real everything. So until people have positive experiences and others see them for what they are, that's how I think like people will be influenced to learn more.
Do you think, what about this possibility of more students from the UAE to follow your footsteps and come to learn in Israel? Do you think it's possible? Were you contacted by people who were interested? Have you heard about other people who are interested in learning in Israel?
What? I can't hear you. Can you repeat?
Yes, I'm asking you about the possibility of more students from the UAE to follow your footsteps to learn in Israel. Have you heard about people who intend to do that?
Yeah, I've heard about a student who, or a few students who were actually connected or were attending Herzliya, but they were not attending it like in Israel, but maybe through online or whatever. I'm not so sure, but there were a few who were attending Israeli universities other than myself. But I don't think it is going to be very possible for that to continue happening if the country is not safe for Emiratis, because our country really takes care of us when in regards of safety. They do care that their civilians or their what do you call it, their people are safe at all times. So for example, like if there's a war zone in Lebanon, if there's a war zone in Israel, or there's a war zone wherever it is in the world, the Emirati government will advise its people not to go to these places as it's not safe for them, and they want to take care of their civilians. So as long as Israel maintains peace, maybe that there will be possibility. As long as it continues to be less safe, I don't think it would be more difficult, let's say.
Of course. So another question from the chat about the possibility of Palestinians from Gaza or the West Bank that would want to move to the Emirates after basically after the ceasefire. What do you think about the welcome of the goodwill of the people, of the Emirati people, to accept Palestinians?
There's a lot of initiatives from the UAE to help people in Gaza, for example. Since the war has started, the UAE had the highest percentage. I think the last time I read, it was 47% of the help that was sent to Gazan people was from the UAE compared to all the other countries in the world. Like only 47% was from the UAE. The rest of the percentage was from all over the world, you know? So that's one thing. Another thing was an initiative from the UAE to bring people from Gaza who were injured or who had cancer or who had lost limbs or who needed medical attention. They brought them to the UAE to take care of them, and eventually when they get better, they will go back to their country or their homes. And about people coming to the UAE, it's not only Palestinians who have homes in the UAE. There's also Israelis who live in the UAE, and I know ultra-Orthodox family who are friends of mine who live just 1 or 2 minutes from my auntie's house, which is cool because when I go to my auntie's house, I can also go pass by them and say hi, you know? So as long as there are opportunities in the UAE, people from all over the world can come and have a good life, and whether like they work and stuff. But the thing is, the UAE would take in people as refugees, not in a way that other people do. They would take care of the people who come to the country, and then they can go back peacefully to their homes or to wherever is more safe for them. But I do encourage people in, let's say, in Palestinian territories to be more progressive and let's say to be more progressive in their countries rather than going other places, to make their country a home for them. And I think it's better for both to respect each other, I mean, whether it's Jewish and Palestinian people, and to learn to become one or understand each other, rather than for Israelis or for Palestinians to leave their homes, if you know what I mean. Like that's not the answer.
Okay, thanks, great. Is there anything you would like to add or to share with us before we end? A specific story from Israel that you should have told us, or a lesson that you want to share with us?
Yeah, my lesson. Hear from me and do not hear about me. That is the motto. And hear from me and not about me is because when people tell you about someone or about something, they're only sharing their perspective. But when you go to that specific person or thing and learn about it, you are seeing the most close thing to the truth. But when you hear about the thing, it's mixed with a lot of perceptions, a lot of lies, maybe some truth, but maybe אנשים מגזימים בדברים, אנשים אומרים דברים אחרים שאין תלויה בהמצב. So go check it out for yourself. Go talk to people. Go learn about it instead of hearing about it. And another thing that I've learned, media is full with agenda. I do not believe any media platform ever again, not Israeli platform, media platform, and not Palestinian platform, and not any platform in the world. Everyone has an agenda. Everyone, believe me. That's my experience.
That's mine as well. Thank you, Somiya. It was a really, really, I would always say, a life-changing experience. We learned so much, and I hope to see you soon back in Israel, maybe
בעזרת השם.
something, or maybe just for a visit. Anyway, we invite you to come back. We would love to host you, and we will keep in touch. Thank you for everything you taught us and everything you've done, and for your being an ambassador of goodwill. Good night.
תודה רבה רבה. לילה טוב לכולם.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Night, bye.
Bye.
תודה רבה.
תודה רבה.